Jai Jinendra. Welcome everybody. We'll carry on with the narrative on Kalp Sutra and some one story from Baresar Sajjai today. I'm away then for about 3 weeks, and during my absence, Vinod Bhai Kapasi will be taking the class. And you'll have further details from Sandeep Bhai very soon. So let's start with the Pratna and then with the main subject matter. We'll try and finish early today if we can. We may not have a lot of time for questions afterwards, but if there are any burning questions, please hold them, put them on the chat, and we can pick them up when we rejoin a couple 2-3 weeks time. Namo Orientanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Ujjayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam. Eso Panchanamukaro Sabba Pavapanasano Manglanancha Sabbe Simpadamam Havai Mangalam. Namo Orientanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Ujjayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam. Eso Panchanamukaro Sabba Pavapanasano Manglanancha Sabbe Simpadamam Havai Mangalam. Namo Orientanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Ujjayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam. Eso Panchanamukaro Sabba Pavapanasano Manglanancha Sabbe Simpadamam Havai Mangalam. Veera Sarasura Surendra Mahito Viramuda Sansrita Virena Bheta Swakarmanichayo Veeraya Nityam Nama Veera Tirthamidam Prautamatalam Veera Shaghoram Tapo Veera Shri Truti Kirtikanti Nichaya Sri Veerabhadram Disa Kamathe Dharanendra Cha Swachitam Karma Kurvati Prabhustulya Manovrutti Parshanath Sri Estu Vaha Adimam Prithvinath Madimam Nishparigraham Adimam Tirthanatham Cha Rusubha Swaminam Stumah Anguthe Amrutavase Lapti Tana Bandar Sri Guru Gautam Samare Manavanchita Fadadata. So, as part of the ongoing narratives about the Tirthankar Paramatmas in the Kalp Sutra, we have looked at the 27 previous lives of Bhagwan Mahavir in detail. We have learnt about the lives of Bhagwan Parshanath and his relationship with his brother in the first life, Kamat, and how that saga unfolds life after life. And we have recently looked at the life of Bhagwan Nemnath, the 22nd Tirthankar, and the relationship between him and Rajul in their previous lives. And we've described or we've learnt about how, in contrast to the relationship between Bhagwan Parshanath and Kamat, Bhagwan Nemnath and Rajul's relationship was constantly full of good fellowship, love, and spiritual progress that went hand in hand, and the contrast between what determines a painful and a difficult life after life and what determines the virtues that determine a successful, progressive, and a happy life. Having looked at that, we now come to the narrative about Bhagwan Rishabdev. It's actually quite long, and there is a great detail in the Kalpsutra Kathasar by Sundaben Vora. So I'm not going to start with the full narrative of Bhagwan Rishabdev's life, but for today's lesson, what I'd like to explore with you is what is described as the nature of the time cycle. Though we have mentioned this off and on throughout the classes that we have, there is a chapter devoted to the nature of time as described in Jainism, particularly with reference to the Bharat Kshetra that we are living in and similar kshetras which are subject to changes as time goes. So there is no steady state. Uh, Times keep on changing, as opposed to, say, Mahavidya Kshetra, where everything remains more or less the same. I mean, on a daily narrative, there are ups and downs, but the nature of the time itself doesn't change. So, this particular chapter is labeled Jain Darshan Ma Kal Chakra Nupraman. Like, what does actually Kal Chakra or time cycle uh, mean, and how is it described in relation to where we are in the Bharat Kshetra here? Let me just share some slides with you. This is just an aid memoir. Uh, all the details are not in the slides. So, this particular narrative is mentioned in the story of Bhagwan Rishabdev, because as we heard in the verse, the prayer verse that I recited today, the last one after Bhagwan Parshnath, Adimam Prithvinatha, Madimam Nishparigraham, Adimam Tirth Natham Cha Rusabha Swaminam Stumaha. So Bhagwan Rishabdev is remembered as Adimam Prithvinatha. So he was the first king of this time cycle of this world, Bharat Kshetra. Adimam Prithvinatha, Adimam Nishparigraham. He was the first monk. Nishparigraham meaning without parigraha. Adimam Tirthanatham Cha. So he was the first Tirthankar, as we all know. Rusabha Swaminam Stumaha. So I bow down to, I worship Bhagwan Rishabdev. So Jain Darshan describes the ever-changing nature of time in the 5 Bharat Kshetras and the 5 Airavat Kshetras in terms of Utsarpini and Avsarpini. So there is a Kal Chakra, meaning a circle. The current time that we are in is part of the Avsarpini, and then following this there will be the half cycle of Utsarpini. Avsarpini is the declining half of the time circle or time cycle, and Utsarpini is the ascending half of the time circle or time cycle. Each one has 6 aras. So let's look at this in brief. We will come back to Bhagwan Rishabdev's life on my return, but that narrative is quite long and we might have to sort of spend 2-3 weeks on that. And it is quite interesting and important to understand as well. So we'll spend a bit more time, but let's start with this today. The length of each half of the time cycle is 10 Koda Kodi Sagaropam. So the current Avsarpini, which is going to end not too far in the future, was or is 10 Koda Kodi Sagaropam, and the following Utsarpini, the ascending time cycle, will also be 10 Koda Kodi Sagaropam. I briefly described what a Sagaropam is previously, but just to uh, put it in context, these terms are used to describe an extremely long periods of time. They come into the realm of something that cannot be counted. So putting a number to it is very, very difficult. So the way they are described is by a metaphor. So if you look at one sagropam is a kodakodi palyopam. Code is 1 crore times 1 crore palyopam. The way a palyopam is described is that if you have a hole dug in the ground, which is 1 yojan wide, 1 yojan long, and 1 yojan deep, and that hole, a yojan in this context would actually, I think, would mean a yojan as described, as used in describing celestial distances. So that would mean about 4,000 miles wide, 4,000 miles long, and 4,000 miles deep. So 1 yojan hole in the ground, if that is filled up with very, very fine hair, and the way that's described is the finest hair is the hair of a Yuglik Manushya. Some places I've read it described as not the full length of the hair, but the hair cut into very, very small pieces. And that hole is so filled up and packed so tightly that even if the army of a Chakravarti was to go over that particular hole, the hair that has been packed in would not really move at all. So the army could actually walk on that without sinking. So it is so tightly packed. And out of that hole, if one bit of the hair or one hair is removed every year, then the time it takes to empty that hole would be the time of one palyopam. A sagropam is then one koda kodi palyopam, and one Avsarpini is thus or 10 koda kodi sagropam. In this particular half of the time cycle, the Avsarpini, the description of how it started, we are, as you all probably remember, in the 5th ara, and we got one more ara of similar length, that will be the 6th ara. The 5th ara and the 6th ara are both 21,000 years long. We passed about 2,500 years of this ara. We've still got about 18,000 plus years, 18,500 years left of this ara. And then we got the 6th ara of 21,000 years. The first ara is described as Susham Susham. Susham means Sukh and Sukh. So the words used to describe them are talking about the level of peace and happiness that prevails in those times for the beings living in that time. The length of this first ara is actually 4 Koda Kodi Sagropam. So it is the longest period. So in some ways, the way to look at it is that our current period, which is supposed to be very bad and very painful and very difficult to live in, is actually very, very short. The best period is the first ara, which is 4 Koda Kodi Sagrupam, and it is very long. This is the time when there are yugliks, meaning a couple born and living together, a man and a woman. They're born of the same parents. They live throughout their life as brother, sister, or in technical terms, it's actually a husband-wife, but the relationship of the sexual relationship is very minimal, and it's only the relationship or the intercourse happens once in their lifetime, and as a result of that one joining, another yuglik is born. And in this particular period of time, the yuglik card, not just the man and the woman, but the animals are also born as yugals, meaning twins. All they need is provided by the kalpvruksh. The kalpvruksh is a wish-giving tree, so whatever you ask for, it is fulfilled. They need very little food. They actually only feel hungry once every 3 days. And the amount of food that they need to eat is equivalent to a small grain, because the food is so nutritious at that time that even a small amount would satisfy the person. And this couple, when 6 months are remaining in their lifespan, would give birth to another twin, boy and a girl, and they only look after this twin babies, these twins, for about 49 days. And by that time, they become self-reliant and they can live independently after that and grow up in that time. And the couple die very peacefully, whereby there's no illness as such. So they would maybe sneeze once or yawn once, and they would die very peacefully and naturally without any pain or discomfort. Their bodies are then picked up and taken away by large birds. And because they have lived their life in a very peaceful way without any anger, greed, deceit, or pride, and no real rag or dvesh, they've not needed to earn a living. They've not needed to create anything. The whole very, very long life is spent living in paradise. So this is to an extent something similar to what the Bible describes as the time of Adam and Eve. And because they have lived a very sinless life, a very peaceful life without any kasai, at the end of their life, the soul would normally always go to Devlok. So their next life from Yuglik is a Devlok, and there they would again spend a long period of time, and then according to their previous karmas would be born again elsewhere in whatever place. So the first ara is Yuglik Kar, 4 Koda Kodi Sagrupam. The second ara, which is called Susham. So the amount of happiness reduces a bit. In the first ara, it is Susham Susham, meaning Sukh and Sukh. Second ara, it is Sukh only. The length of that ara is 3 Koda Kodi Sagrupam. And compared with the first ara, the beauty of the people, the couple, their body height, their strength, the length of their lifespan, and everything becomes a bit less. There are descriptions of how big they are, and those are, I mean, by our terms, they would be extreme giants. And in that time, there is a description of not only their lifespan, which is about 2 paliopam in this time. In the first ara, the lifespan is 3 paliopam. In the second ara, Susham, the lifespan is 2 paliopam. They would need food once every 2 days rather than 3 days. They would have to look after their newborn twin children for 64 days instead of 49 days, and they would die in a similar way. The third ara, which is called Susham Dusham, meaning there is a lot of sukh, but there is also an element of dukh in this ara. So things are deteriorating. That is the descending time cycle, the Avsarpini. This ara is, the length is 2 Koda Kodi Sagaropam. There is a lot of happiness, but a little bit of dukh as well, or unhappiness. The body size is lower. The lifespan is 1 Paliopam. The body is shaped slightly differently, and there is a description of the number of ribs that people have in each of these aras. They need to look after their newborn twins for 79 days. And they would need a bit more food, and they would feel hungry almost on a uh, daily basis or alternate days. When the third ara is almost gone, and there is remaining 84 lakh purvas, 3 years and 8.5 months. At that point, the first Tirthankar is born. So there is a set time in the third ara when the third Tirthankar is born, and this is repeated in every Avsarpini, every time cycle. So 84 lakh, so 88.4 million purvas, 3 years and 8.5 months. When that much amount of time is left for the completion of the third ara, the Tirthankar Paramatma is born. The Kalpvruksh would become weaker, so they are no longer able to do or give as much as they were able to in the first and the second. The intellectual power and the physical power, etc., is reducing. And the first Tirthankar, before they become a monk, they would teach the people the various crafts and trades. So there is a description of all the crafts and trade and the way to harness fire, the way to make pots. All those things were taught by Bhagwan Rishabdev and his forefathers, and gradually to prepare the population for the declining times that were coming in the future. So all the skills that they would now need which were never necessary before because everything that they needed was supplied by the kalpvriksh. Now the kalpvriksh will slowly begin to disappear, and towards the end, they do disappear, and people need to find ways of sustaining themselves, and all the different trades. So, Assi, Massi, Krushi, meaning how to grow food, what to eat, what not to eat, how to harness water, fire, etc., how to make things, so different crafts. So, Bhagwan Rushabdev taught the various skills of a man, various skills of a woman to his children, and the language skills to one of his daughters, Brahmi, for them to then slowly pass them all on to the others. So there are, don't know if you uh, heard, but there is a good description of um 64 skills of a woman and the 72 skills of a man. So these were all taught by Bhagwan Rishabdev to the people at that time, and since then they have been sort of progressing and they have been available, but we obviously have lost a lot of those skills subsequently. But that is what the first Tirthankar would do during every time cycle towards the end of the third ara. And normally in this ara as well, there is one Chakravarti. So in our Avsarpini, Bharat Chakravarti, Bhagwan Rishabdev's son, was born. And at the end of the third ara, the first Tirthankar achieves Nirvana, so he goes to moksha. So at the end of the third ara, Bhagwan Rishabdev went to moksha, and then the fourth ara started. The fourth ara is named Dusham Susham. So in this ara, there is more unhappiness and a little happiness. So things are worsening, changing. This ara is 1 Koda Kodi Sagropam minus 42,000 years. And those 42,000 years, so the fourth, fifth, and sixth ara combined are 1 Koda Kodi Sagropam. The fifth and the sixth, as we have learned before, is each 21,000 years long. So you got 42,000 minus 1 Koda Kodi Sagrupam, that is the length of the fourth ara. During the fourth ara, all the from the second Tirthankar to the 24th Tirthankar were born in that ara. There is a lot of unhappiness. Things are unstable. There are lots of wars. All kinds of things are happening. After 3 years and 8.5 months after the nirvana of the first Tirthankar of Bhagwan Rishabdev, the fourth ara started. So Bhagwan Rishabdev's total life was spent in the third ara, but towards the end, when about 3 years and 8.5 months are remaining, then the fourth ara starts, and people stop being born as yugliks. So we are not talking about just ordinary twins. We are talking about Yuglik Manusha, when a boy and a girl are always born together, live together. So that particular Yuglik time now ends. In this ara, 23 Tirthankars are born and live, 11 Chakravartis, 9 Vasudevs, 9 Prativasudevs, and now Bardevs. So Vasudev, Prativasudev, and Bardev, they all have an intimate relationship. Vasudev and Bardev are usually brothers. So Ram and Lakshmana were Bardev and Vasudev. Krishna and Balram were Bardev and Vasudev. Bharat Chakravarti, and there are a lot of other Chakravartis that are described. So, and Bhagwan, Santinath, Kuntunath, they were Chakravartis and Tirthankar rolled into one. At the end of the fourth ara, when there are just at the end, so about when 3 years and 8.5 months are left, the last Tirthankar goes to moksha. So Bhagwan Mahavir Swami went to moksha when there were 3 years and 8.5 months left of the fourth ara, and 3 years and 8.5 months after the nirvana of Bhagwan Mahavir, the fifth ara started. The fifth ara is just described as Dusham, meaning it is Gana Dukh Vado, meaning there is a predominance of unhappiness, pain, discomfort, everything declining, everything getting worse. I mean, throughout the fourth ara, things were gradually deteriorating, but they become worse during the fifth ara where we are living. The last Tirthankar's sasan or the dharma would be maintained till the end of the fifth ara. So Bhagwan Mahavir's sasan will remain till the end of this ara, so for another about 18,500 years. The people's understanding and conduct in terms of their duty and dharma will be declining, wealth would be declining, general level of happiness would be declining. Overall, there would be a lot of ups and downs. In this time, there is not a long periods of a steady state, and we can already see that happening in our lifetimes. If you look at the world events, people are not generally as calm and collected and generous as they would be in the fourth ara, and obviously more in the other three aras. People's general behavior would be poor. The royalty or the kings would actually be much more greedier, and they would, the word that is described here is Bhakshan Vrutivara, meaning their commitment to the welfare of the population would be significantly less than that of the kings in the fourth ara. Okay. So at the beginning of the fifth ara, the lifespan could be about 125 years in general, but it gradually declines. We are looking at exceptions in this time as well. We are looking at people who are in their 120 years. There are some people who have reached about 150 years that we hear descriptions of. And the lifespans would gradually decrease throughout this era, though currently we see that generally in wealthy populations, in wealthier nations, the lifespans we've seen in our lifetime be slightly longer, but overall globally there will be gradual decline, and towards the end of the fifth era the lifespans will go down to about 20 years. As we also know that the road to moksha ends following soon after Bhagwan Mahavir's Nirvana. So the last Kevali, the last person who went to moksha from our time cycle was Jambu Swami, and he went to moksha not many years after Bhagwan Mahavir's Nirvan. After that, there was nobody can go to moksha from this Bharat until a long time in the future. The sixth ara, again 21,000 years, is described as Dusham Dusham, meaning only Dukh and Dukh in that ara. 21,000 years long. In this ara, there is a huge amount of pain and unhappiness. The days would be extremely hot. So what we worry about the environmental concerns and the disasters that we are expecting of uh, the temperatures going up more and more, our Shastras describe that happening very intensely during the sixth ara, so there is still a long time to go, but the decline has already started and we are seeing that. There's a lot of heat during the day. The days are extremely hot. The nights would be extremely cold, so like a desert-like atmosphere. Constructed abodes or residences, buildings will gradually get destroyed and disappear. There will be only certain areas where life would be possible near the uh, areas around the Ganga and Sindhu rivers, and they would be gufa, meaning caves, where people can live, because outside, exposed to the elements, life would be impossible. People would not normally come out of their caves during the day because it would be extremely hot. And when they come out in the evening, they would capture fish or similar water creatures and cook them in the heat in the day and eat them at night. The people would be very argumentative and constantly fighting. They would be very weak generally. They would have lots of illnesses. They would not have much culture, and their lifespans are very small, and the women would give birth at the age of 6, and they would give birth to many children. And after they end their life, when the lifespan finishes, normally they would go to Narak or to Tiryansh, meaning animal life. And being born in the sixth Tara would be the result of extreme pop. So that is how things are described as going to be declining from where we are to the sixth Tara. Then in the ascending time cycle, Avsarpini, there is a reverse order. The first ara is similar to the sixth ara of our time cycle. Again, Dusham Dusham, 21,000 years. Second ara is Dusham Dukh, again 21,000 years. The third ara is Dusam Susham, is 1 Kodakodi Sagropam minus 42,000 years. The first Tirthankar would be born 3 years and 8.5 months after the beginning of the third ara. And during this particular third ara, 23 Tirthankars, 11 Chakravartis, now 9 Bardevs, 9 Vasudevs, 9 Prativasudev. would be born, and things would be gradually getting better and better as time goes. So this is an ascending time cycle, everything would be getting better. In the fourth ara of the ascending time cycle, which would be two Koda Kodi Sagrupams, when about 84 lakh Purva and 3 years and 8.5 months are gone, then the 24th Tirthankar of the next time cycle would be born, and he would have a similar lifespan and experiences as Bhagwan Rishabdev. And the 12th Chakravati would be born in the fourth ara of the ascending time cycle as well. Like the first Chakravati, Bharatdev was born in the fourth ara at the time of Bhagwan Rishabdev. And then in the so the fourth ara Susham Dusham, and then the fifth ara Susham, similar to the second ara of our time cycle of the Avsarpini, and the sixth ara Susam Susham would follow with a similar time spans of 4 Koda Kodi Sagarupam of the sixth ara in the ascending cycle, 3 Koda Kodi Sagarupam of in the fifth ara of the ascending cycle, and similarly. And this is how the time cycle goes in the Bharat Kshetras where we are now. Very briefly now, we'll talk about the story of Chandanbala. You all heard about Chandanbala. She is remembered in the Bharesa Sajai as the second person in the description of the 16 great women, the 16 satis. So Sulsa Chandanbala, Manorama, Mayanaraya, Damayanti. So that verse goes like this. Sulisa Chandanbala, Manorama, Mayanareha, Damayanti, Namya Sundari Siya, Nanda Banda, Nanda Badda Subhadaya, Sulsa Chandanbala, Manorama, Madan Rekha, Damayanti, Narmada, Sundari, Sita, Nanda Badda Subhadra. Those 10 Mahasatis are described in this verse by name, and this is a story of Chandanbala. So let's briefly look at that. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Chandanbala. Her story is narrated during Paryushan almost every year, and we remember her in many different narratives, songs, stavans. In one particular stavan, Chand Koshiyane Ugari Ugari Chandanabala. And there is one particular song about Chandanbala, which describes the time when she is actually giving Bhagwan Mahavir the alms, and we all know the story of what particular circumstance that was, but the particular Geet that describes that is goes like this. आओ आओ देव मारा सुना सुना द्वार मारा आंगना सुना रोती रोती चंदन बाला बीन वेछे आज मारा आंगना सुना પગમાં બેડી માથે મુંડી આંખે આંસુધાર ત્રણ ત્રણ દિનની ઉપવાસીને મુખથી ગણે નવકાર મારા आंगना सुना. This is from a great Katha Geet by Santilal Shah, and it's a beautiful narrative of that whole incident. And this is one of the songs that is part of that narrative. So Chandanbala was actually a princess, and her father's kingdom was once attacked by an enemy king and defeated. So the king died, Chandanbala's father, and her mother with Chandanbala tried to escape from the soldiers who were pursuing them to capture them. One soldier does capture Chandanbala's mother and the daughter. Chandanbala's name was actually Vasumati at the time, and her mother's name was Dharini. The soldier has captured both of them and is asking Chandanbala's mom to become his wife and to go with him. He's obviously captured her and he wants to take her home as his concubine or as his wife. Dharini, obviously, as a sati, says that I'd rather die than go with anybody else. And in the main, you captured us, and I'm not going to let you touch me. And she actually commits suicide by biting her tongue herself and kills herself. So, young Vasumati, who is just a young girl, is left on her own, and seeing her mother dead, she is extremely distressed and starts crying. The soldier, however bad he was, finds this particular scene very unsettling, and he is filled with remorse that what have I done as a result of my very inappropriate demand from this Sati queen Dharini. She has killed herself, and I have distressed this young girl so badly. And he tries to placate her and says, don't worry, I will look after you, I will take care of you. You have nothing to fear from me. I'm really sorry that your mother has died. And he tries to make amends. But when he goes forth, he obviously realizes that he's not going to be being able to look after her. Then he goes to the other city that he used to live, and there used to be slave markets there, and he puts her up for sale in one of those markets. And that time, one very benign and generous saint comes and sees this young girl and is very uh, kind to her and says, I must save her. And looking at her, he recognizes that she is of royal blood and very cultured and from a very affluent family, and that she's in great distress. So he saves her and takes her home. And Chandanbala grows up in the household as a servant and very well looked after by the uh, Seth, who she regards as her father. And she is very cultured and happy. However, once it happens that Chandanbala's father, or the person that she looked upon as father, the Seth, his wife is very jealous of Chandanbala because he's now growing up into a very beautiful young woman, and she sees her as a rival, though her husband is only seeing Chandanbala as his daughter. And once when the Seth has gone away somewhere on some business, she means her the Seth's wife decides to punish Chandanbala, and once the Seth is gone, she imprisons Chandanbala in a small room, ties her up with chains, and shaves her head off and leaves her imprisoned there. After 3 days, the Seth comes back and he can't actually see Chandanbala, and searching the house, he finally finds her in a basement sort of prison and sees that she has been shackled to the wall. So he brings with him some leftover food, realizing that she's not eaten for 3 days. And what the leftover food was simple arad na pakada, and gives it to her and says, "You try and eat this while I get somebody to break these chains and free you. I'm really sorry that this has happened." And while he's gone away, Chandan Bala is thinking that while I've been fasting for 3 days, I've heard that there are lots of monks around and I want to break my fast after I feed a monk. So she is very desirous of actually finding a monk. Bhagwan Mahavir has taken a vow during that time that I will only break my fast if a princess who is crying, who is bald in her, whose hair has been shaved off, who is standing with one foot in the room and one foot outside the door frame of the border of the door frame, with, in this particular scenario, only then will I take some food from her. And she must be serving or having Aradhana Bakada. So he has taken this vow and he's been going around this particular city day after day, but not taking any food from anybody, because and the whole town is worried that Bhagwan Mahavir is going. He is not yet achieved Keval Gnan. He is still in his sadhana kal and is going from house to house on a daily basis and coming back without any food. On this particular day, he sees that his vow is being fulfilled. He sees a princess in front of him who is got a head shaved, who's got tears in her eyes, whose legs are tied to chains. One foot is inside, one foot is outside. And he goes towards her as he's standing there waiting to be released by the Seth with the luhar, that is the blacksmith who would be coming with her. As soon as she sees Bhagwan Mahavir, she is overjoyed and her tears dry up. As soon as her tears dry up before Bhagwan Mahavir approaches, he takes a turn back. He says, one particular aspect of this vow is not fulfilled because you are not crying. And seeing him go, she starts crying again. So Bhagwan Mahavir returns and takes the food from her and breaks his fast. And the Devs who've been watching all this time shower wealth on the ground at that time, and they break the shackles that she's tied to. She gets her hair back as a result of the intervention by the Devs, and Chandan Bala, then when Bhagwan Mahavir achieves Keval Gnan and establishes the Tirth, becomes the first sadhvi of that Sangh. So that is the story of Chandan Bala, and we remember her in the Bharesar Sajjai on a daily basis. There are one other important story in her life with her Masi Mugavati, who was her disciple, but we'll come to that story at some other time. Then that story is about how Chandan Bala achieves Keval Gnan. Okay. I'll end here now. If I've said anything that is against the teachings of Jain Dharma, I ask for forgiveness. Michhami dukdam, jinagna viruddh kai pan boli hoy, te manuchan kaya kare, tasmichhami dukdam. Sarvamangala Sarakalyan Karanam Pradhanam Sarvadharmanam Jainam Jaiti Sasanam. I hope you enjoyed the class. Please carry on. I will log off now, but if there are any questions, I'm sure Bharatbhai can answer anything if you want to stay on. But Kavit, is it okay if I switch off now?
Yes, it's fine. That's not a problem.
Yeah. So if there are any questions, Bharatbhai, if you don't mind, and you can send them to me later on. You all got my WhatsApp number, hopefully, or my email, and we can catch up on that when we resume. Have a good few weeks and all the best to everybody. Thank you, Meera, Darshana, Kavit.
Thank you, Ajitbhai.
Ajitbhai.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Ajitbhai.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
safe
you.
journey.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Ajitbhai. Have a safe journey.
Have a safe journey.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank
you. Bye.
Jai Jinendra.
Jai Jinendra.
I don't think we have any questions at the moment. So, Meera, do we have any questions?
I have not received any questions
Okay.
in the chat.
So, Bharatbhai, I think we can close the session.
All right. No worries.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Jai Jinendra.
Jai Jinendra. We'll see you next week.